Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to my YouTube channel or my podcast. I'm Will coming out of the multidimensional guide and bleeding channel, here to help you awaken, heal, and expand your consciousness. And today in this conversation episode, I had the absolute pleasure to talk to Kerry K. And I've been watching her videos lately and I've been resonating so much with her content. She talks a lot about 5D Ascension, 5D New Earth, light workers, multidimensionality, the shift between 3D to 5D. And in this conversation today, we actually went through all of these topics. We talked about 5D, 3D false matrix, the shift that's happening, the ascension that's happening, also the importance of the body being embodied through this ascension. We talked about soul retrieval too, and it was just a beautiful conversation. Kerry is just so wise and she shares so much light. She shares her information, her wisdom. Yeah, I hope that I know that you will get something out of it, and it's always what you need. So stick to us, and I hope that you enjoy it. If you do, please leave a comment, share this episode with someone that you love, because it really helps the channel to expand and grow. And it also helps a lot of light workers and starseeds that may need to hear and listen to this information. So enjoy the show. Hello, Kerry. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Will. Great to be with you.
It's so nice to connect with you because I've been watching a lot of your videos on YouTube, and oftentimes I catch myself just like nodding and because I resonate with everything you say and also the way that you deliver, which is like your logo says, straight talking spirituality. And I like that approach very, very much. And a lot of the things that you talk about on your channel, 5D Ascension, New Earth, light workers, multidimensionality. I love it, and I also talk about it on my channel. So I know that this conversation will flow, and we set the intention earlier to just talk about all the things that the collective needs to hear. Whoever is watching this or listening to this, they will get something out of it. Just before we start talking about, the juicy stuff, I'd love to just learn a little bit more about your journey. And if you could, I know it's a long story, but if you could give us like a snapshot of your journey, your background, maybe your spiritual awakening, and how you got to be where you are today as this ascension guide, light worker.
Sure, I'd love to. It's always a difficult thing. You got to wonder where do I start? And I've shared the story so many times, but I always try to abbreviate the story because it is long. But if I were to give you the abbreviated version, I was really, really sick as a child. And because I was really ill, it afforded me an experience that I know most people don't get. And it was the experience in childhood of going beyond the veil multiple times. So I had many experiences of hovering between life and death. And it was very beautiful. It was very pleasant. So when I listen to people who've had near-death experiences, I listen to a very familiar story, except it wasn't a one-off event. It happened over multiple weeks, over multiple months, over multiple years. So most of my childhood was spent very far outside of this world that I call the false matrix. It was spent in the organic universe. Because when people come back and they report, okay, I've had a near death experience, I saw this, I saw an angel, it's a beautiful thing, but they've literally got a few moments there, not often more than that. But if you get to spend time there, you get to realize that what most people describe is the doorway, just the doorway to that world beyond the false matrix, the organic universe. If you spend enough time there, you eventually land up in a place that I call the heart of God. And when you're in the heart of God, There's no more form, there's no more words, there's no more questions, there's no more conversation. You are at one with all that is, and you are a living, breathing part of the universe, and you know that you're a living, breathing part of the universe. You are in the heart and the mind of God. So everything that there is to know, you know, and everything that there is to understand, you understand, because in that time, you are the creator in the creator's consciousness. And I got to spend a lot of time there. Coming back was always really difficult because I now had to come back into a very small little body. I was in this expansive state, sometimes for days at a time. And then I would come back into this what felt like a very small little body. And I had this huge consciousness, and I felt like I was compressed, like I had nowhere to put it. And then I had to normalize to the false matrix again, which felt very weird. And then I would get sick and go off. And so this was my childhood. My childhood was this journey between two worlds. And when people ask me, like, your spiritual awakening, when did it happen? It didn't happen. I was just always in that state as far back as I can remember. So there wasn't a moment where I was like, oh, this is all a lie and it's all coming back to me and now I'm waking up. It was more like the relief of watching other people from around about 2012 onwards, watching other people starting to change their frequency, then their language, then their understanding. And that's when I stepped in as a teacher because I was like, okay, now I can start speaking. It wasn't actually till about 2016, 17 that I started teaching in earnest. I was always on the sidelines, always watching, always holding back. And eventually I realized, okay, you have a message, Kerry. It's time. Start speaking. And so here I am. And that's exactly what I've been doing. I speak every single day. Well, I get bored of my own voice. I put up videos on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and everywhere that I can because people deserve to know. They've spent so long in the dark, they deserve to know the truth. So that's the abbreviated version of my story.
Yeah, and this beautiful work that you do is very much needed right now. So we thank you for stepping into that power that you already had, right? When you were a child. It's just that you didn't have the knowledge or the terminology sometimes to make sense of things, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that was a large part of my journey was learning to translate all of that into words, which is one of the things that I help people to do today. Because sometimes people have knowledge, as in linear, literal, analytical information, but they can't apply it at the energetic level. For me, it was the other way around. I had energetic information that I couldn't put words to. Either way, it's the same thing, and that is a process of integration, either from the head to the heart or the heart to the head. It's a process of assimilation and integration. And it's one of the things that I'm really passionate about and help people with because it took me so long. It took me years to learn how to condense this information into something that was applicable. You know, a lot of people are spiritual in the head. Do you know
Mhm.
what? Like they're spiritual in their thoughts. They're spiritual in kind of like a very airy way. And I mean airy as in that's what your thoughts are. Your thoughts are ether and air. So a lot of people's spirituality is ungrounded as a result. And I'm very passionate about making it real and practical and not kind of like out there, but very much a part of your everyday breath.
Yeah.
That's what spirituality should be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. And embodied too, right? And I want to just go back a little bit um, to something you shared that you felt that expansion in your consciousness, but then you also felt like you had a little body, right? That didn't necessarily capture or absorb all of that high frequency energy. Um, and so that's an example of how we must be embodied as well to be able to carry that high frequency. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that aspect of the
Right.
body and how the body is important in this ascension process for everybody.
I'd love to. I'd love to talk about this because this is something that I wish everybody knew, and that was that ascension is a physical experience. So most people are in the world right now imagining that ascension is going to come down to what they know, and it just isn't. It just isn't. You know, somebody asked me the other day, they said, Kerry, if people haven't done shadow work, how are they going to ascend? And I said, my God, there are people that are going to ascend that don't even know, they will never know how to spell shadow work. They will never know what you know, because what you know doesn't determine whether you ascend or not. It's what you experience on the inside. When your eyes are closed, there is a buzz, like an energetic frequency. And the more you learn to tune into that, tap into that, and resonate that into the world, the more you're going to create that pathway to ascension. You see, most people have lived in the false matrix where the world around them has told them who they are, what they feel, how they should feel, how they should look, how they should act, what they should think, when they should eat, what they eat. Bah, 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 bah. So, in other words, what we called reality, which was never real, was the illusion. That we called reality created the human instead of the other way around, where we're supposed to create reality from the inside, but we weren't even positioned inside here. We weren't even inside the body because we were so busy being up in the brain. Like, what do we do with children? As we have children in this world, we want to school them. We've got to educate them. In other words, we've got to put their locus of control into the brain so that they become powerful thinkers, not powerful feelers, not powerful healers, not powerfully embodied. And then we go through the spiritual awakening and we realize this is actually a physical experience, because it is. And the moment we understand, wow, ascension is a physical experience, then we realize ascension is something that happens to you and through you. It's not something that you can write a test for. It's not something you can pass or fail. It's not something you can even understand. It's not something you're meant to understand. It's something you're meant to allow. So that means we've got to start working with the body's wisdom. And there are things the body knows that the mind will never, because the mind's not supposed to do what the body does and vice versa. So it's not like the brain is wrong and the body's right. It's like these are two very important components to your beingness, but your locus of control, meaning your seat of power, needs to be inside the body. Right now, for most human beings, their entire sense of self, their sense of self is coming from their thoughts. This is tragic. This is why people are so confused. Because what happens if you hang out in your analytical brain for long enough? You're going to wrap yourself into circles and think your way into endless pits that you're just going to trip over yourself to get into. And then what's going to happen? You're going to wait for somebody else to tell you what to do because you've lost your ability to discern. The body can do things that the brain can't, like the body can be receptive. So I can tell my brain, receive the wisdom of the universe, for example, receive light codes from the sun. I can tell my brain to do that. My brain can understand the words, but it still can't perform the action. It's my body that's able to be receptive. It's my body that's able to allow. It's my body that's able to absorb the light codes. That's what embodiment is. Embodiment is trusting this vehicle, trusting it to be able to metamorphosize into the 5D being. The brain can't do that. Even if you tell the brain, listen, brain, ascend, make me 5D. The brain's going to go, it's almost going to lead you into another one of those endless pits. Why must I lead you into 5D? Is 5D safe? Are you going to be okay? How do you know that you're there when you get there? Like, and those are the questions that I find people asking me because they're stuck in the mind, which is exactly what the false matrix was supposed to do. It was supposed to imprison us in the mind, and we were supposed to break free. It's like we came to play this out.
Mhm.
We came knowing that this was going to be a part of the journey, that we were going to feel entrapped. Then we were going to move from the brain into the heart, which means into embodiment. And that was going to be the shift of the ages. It is the shift into the body. You know, people always think I'm a bit weird. Well, when I teach them to meditate, which we do a lot of, right? I've got like an online teaching group. So they're called the Plasma Light Tribe, and I meet with them once a week. And they think, well, at least in the beginning, I suppose, they think, geez, this Kerry chick is a bit weird. Because when we meditate, I say to them, close your eyes and wiggle, like just like wiggle into your body. And I can only but imagine that they're thinking, what have I signed up for? Why is this woman telling me to wiggle? I want to know God. I want to ascend. I don't want to wiggle into my body. And the thing is, the wiggling is getting physical. And through the meditative experience, we have this deep energy work. And then I tell them at the end, now wiggle it in, like literally move the frequencies into integration. And all of that wiggling helps them to feel physical. And if you look at all of the old spirituality, what did it tell us? It told us to go astral traveling and go visit other dimensions, but not with the body. And ascension has to happen with the body. It's very easy. I always tell people this. I can take you to 5D now. Like in the next 10 minutes, we can meditate. You're going to be in 5D. But that doesn't mean you can ascend. That means your consciousness can reach 5D, which is super, super easy. Can your body do it? That's why embodiment is everything right now. And this part of the journey, it's all about how much light, how much love can I let in? And that's a
Mhm.
humbling feeling to realize that that's what matters. All the shadow work and all the I know this and I know that, and I was this in a past life, and I was that in another past life. Oh, and I'm stuck in my second chakra because my shaman told me. I mean, this is just all head-based information that's actually irrelevant to the ascension journey.
Yeah.
If you can let love, let light be experienced inside the cells of your body, then you're doing the stuff of masters, literally.
Yes. Drop mic.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And I love what you said earlier too about you said you can't think your way through ascension.
Yeah.
And and by the way, I love weird. I hang out with the weird because I'm weird too.
Yay.
Well, depending from your perspective, we're pretty normal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I love everything you shared, and I was also thinking about the role of emotions too, and how it can connect the mind to the body, right? Because we have the emotional body as well. And I see in myself and with people that I work to that sometimes, like you said, they think and they know intellectually a lot of things. They might even feel in the body, the so-called ascension symptoms.
Yeah.
But then, the emotional system is either overloaded, like they feel too much, the empaths, or not, or there's so much in their mind that the emotional system is almost like shut down. So what is your perspective on the emotional system or body's role for us?
Yeah. I love that you spoke about the emotional body because it's one of the many layers of our multidimensionality. We have an actual body that happens to be the bridge to our soul, the bridge between this physical form and your soul. Now, you can use any word here. You can say soul, you can say higher self, you can say infinite self, you can say cosmic self. There's 1,000 different names to describe the same thing. That part of you that is infinite, that part of you that is multidimensional. There's a bridge between you and it, and that bridge is the emotional body. And we were totally separated at birth here into the false matrix. We were separated from the true self through the method of dysregulating the emotional body. And through that dysregulation, we become unplugged or we become overwhelmed, just like you said. So these are symptoms of disconnection. That's what they are. They are symptoms of the dysfunctional, abnormal behavior of being in the false matrix. We are supposed to be in union with our own emotional body, which puts us in union with our soul. And what's crazy is there's buzzwords in the spiritual community. You know, people want twin flame relationships. They want sacred unions. They want divine unions, but they're fragmented within themselves. You cannot be fragmented within yourself, but you want wholeness in a relationship. It's got to be the other way around. Reality has to come from within you. So wholeness within you creates the landscape for a relationship of wholeness. And wholeness within you is the reintegration of your emotional body. That which we've disowned, that which we've analyzed. Because that's what most people do with their emotions. Most people think their way through their emotions.
Yeah. And
And one
judge
of my favorite, sorry, Will, what was that?
and judge them too, right? Judge the emotion.
Exactly, which is so harmful because now you're telling that emotion you're wrong. Whatever you are, you're wrong. So what is that emotion going to do? It's going to go hiding now. And now you're going to work really hard to bring it up again because all of those emotions, even the ones we've judged and disowned, we have to at some point reintegrate. And we make that job of reintegration really difficult when we bring in judgment or when we suppress something, which is the reason why most people are walking around with varying degrees of depression. It's from the suppression of the emotions. One of my favorite questions to answer, well, and it's something I get asked a lot, when specifically in energy work. So if we're doing meditation or some kind of energy work, then I'll ask my online community to share with me what they felt. And people will say things like this. They'll say, oh, I felt love and I felt bliss and I felt 5D. And then you're going to get people who say this, I felt nothing. I failed. I felt nothing. They say, I can't feel at the level that you guys are feeling. So there must be something wrong with me. And then I say to them, okay, so what did you feel? And they say, well, either a big fat blank, like just dead space, nothing. Or they say, I felt frustrated that I couldn't feel what I wanted to. And then I say to them, okay, so the issue is not that you can't feel, it's that you don't like what you feel. And then you disown it. Because frustration is a feeling, and numbness is a feeling, and a blank space is a feeling. And when you don't like the feeling, then you say, I'm not feeling what I want to feel. Therefore, from the logical mind's perspective, which is controlling everything still, therefore, I'm not feeling. But everyone can feel. We've just forgotten. It sounds crazy. We forgot how to feel. We forgot how to re-engage with our emotional self. But when we bring that back online, we're going to start shifting our relationship into one of wholeness. And I mean the relationship with ourselves. And when this relationship to self becomes a relationship of wholeness, it shifts every other relationship in our lives. Every relationship you have is based on this one. And it's crazy. People are trying to fix all their relationships. I'm going to go to a marriage counselor. I'm going to go to a court of law. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. I'm going to stand on a podium and tell people about that narcissist and this psychopath. We don't need to fix all of those external relationships. We need to fix this one, the internal relationship. And when we do, the ripple of this alignment ripples into every relationship, including your relationship to strangers, your relationship to spirit, your relationship to love. Everything shifts because you do. And that basic thing that I spoke about in the beginning about the importance of creating reality from the inside out instead of the outside in. That is such a big shift for us all, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love what you said about we've been disconnected from feeling, so we forgot how to feel, right?
Yeah.
And there's such a big spectrum of emotions to for the human experience, and most people are just experiencing a fraction of that spectrum. And um, I feel like that's also one of the ways to ascend is to expand that experience of that spectrum of emotions. Because like you said, it's a bridge. It's a bridge to the soul, to 5D. Um,
It
and
is.
I I also got a question about because you were talking about wholeness, and one thing that popped up was neutrality, like
Yeah.
arriving at a place where you felt all that spectrum and you might even feel things too, but you're able to get to that space of the heart center that's neutral, not apathetic, but has that sense of all is well, that heart
Mm-hmm.
space. Do you think that um 5D or 5D being is that being that is able to feel neutral
Oh,
because they've
yeah.
experienced a lot of the emotions?
The glue that anchors us into the false matrix and into the third dimensional world is judgment. So whether we were in the false matrix or just a regular old 3D world, because there are actual regular 3D worlds in the organic universe that are not false matrices. So regardless of what kind of 3D world we were in, what would anchor anyone into 3D is judgment. The opposite of judgment is not non-judgment. The opposite of judgment is neutrality. Neutrality, like you so perfectly said, Will, neutrality is not apathy. It is acceptance. And if you look at the world today, oh, people say things like, I don't accept this. I don't accept that. And they don't realize how they're harming themselves. Because acceptance is the foundation upon which neutrality lands. And neutrality is the foundation of 5D. So this is a really, really important skill to learn. And it is an art. You know, I talk about alchemy and neutrality, and I teach about alchemy and neutrality. They're two little words. Alchemy is one word, neutrality is another word. And you would think, how much can she really go on for about these two words? Well, I can go on for days, months, because these two words are the actual foundation of who we are. Number one, we are alchemists, but we can only alchemize what we're neutral to. The moment we're in judgment of something, we lose our ability to alchemize it, which means if I judge myself, I will not be able to shift into 5D because my judgment prevents me from doing so. If I accept myself, I can shift myself into 5D. That's a very basic understanding of how it works. But if we understand things at a very, very basic level, then we can start applying it to our lives. Neutrality is such a masterful and imperative part of the spiritual journey. But of course, it has to be misunderstood. Of course it does, because if you just look at the word neutral in the English language, it has such a terrible connotation. The connotation is apathy, like you said earlier. It's I don't care. But that's not at all what neutrality is. Neutrality is I'm simply seeing what is. How simple is that? How simple is it? If I say to you, I look at my life and I see what is. I don't have to approve. I don't have to love. I don't have to like. I don't have to have an opinion even. But I do have to see what is and acknowledge what is. And then I extend that to the world. And I just allow myself to see what is. When I do that, I become a ripple of light upon this planet that shifts the fabric of creation itself. If I don't take a hammer and a chisel to reality and I say, stop this war because I said so, because it's bad, that's me trying to change the external world. Instead, if I create a neutral space inside of me where I stop going to war with myself, oh, I become peace then, Will. I become peace. And if I become peace, I am contributing to this world in a way that few other people can. But my words don't have to announce it. My words don't have to tell people, okay, this is what I've done, and now you have to do the same. I just have to be the change. I just have to be the ripple. But I can only be that ripple when I'm in neutrality. So I can only perform the art of alchemy from the seat of neutrality. I can only shift an emotion that I am neutral to. In other words, I must accept that emotion before I transform that emotion. And if you look at how we've been taught to handle emotions, number one, we've been taught to understand them, which is useless. To understand or to analyze an emotion does nothing to the emotion. It is only a head-based exercise. No healing can come from that. You can be more intelligent, yes, but you're still not going to heal the emotion. If I want to heal the emotion, I have to step into acceptance of it. Another deeply misunderstood word, acceptance, just like neutrality, so deeply misunderstood. If I accept it, it doesn't mean I agree with it. It means I can see it for what it is. I can see what is. I'm not fighting. In other words, I'm not in resistance. So these important skills allow me to perform my natural ability as an alchemist and to transmute density and darkness within myself. That's how we heal our emotions. And that's why people say the same thing to me over and over again. They say, Kerry, I thought I healed this. Why has it come back again? I've worked so hard. I spent all my money. I spent my time healing this thing, and now it's back again. And the answer is because an emotion cannot be healed until you've stepped into neutrality with that emotion. But when you do, then you will take that emotion, not push it away. Because again, look at what we were taught with our emotions: analyze it or disown it, push it away. So if I don't get rid of the emotion, that's what people say. They say, how do I get rid of anguish? How do I get rid of stress? How do I get rid? You don't get rid of, you transform what you have. You don't give energy away because it's not yours to give. You don't disown, you alchemize it into a higher vibrational frequency. So an alchemist is kind of like the ultimate recycling depot of the universe, because an alchemist throws nothing away. An alchemist transforms everything into a higher version of whatever it is. So when we understand that our emotions are here to be alchemized, then we get a very different sense of how to heal, a very different sense of how to work. Stunning question, Will.
Mhm. Well, thank you. And everything you described is, I've resonated right here in the heart center, and I was just hearing love, love, love. I feel like that what you described is very much that energy of love, but love not as a feeling, but love as a state of consciousness,
Yeah.
because um, uh, when you say accept what is, you're loving what is, it doesn't necessarily mean you're, like you said, like you're enjoying the experience of pain.
Absolutely.
Nobody
Yeah.
enjoys the pain, but when you love what is, you accept and you find that
Yeah.
neutrality. And it's something that the Pleiadians talk a lot about because I've been channeling them too. And recently one of the messages was that like love what is, but loving what is doesn't mean you're enjoying that
Hmm.
experience. You're accepting with neutrality, you're holding space for that so that you can, like you said,
Yeah.
optimize it. So yeah, a lot of the things you say, actually, I feel like our Pleiadian energy. Are you connected to the Pleiadians at all?
I'm connected to everywhere. Like people have often asked me, where's your star origins? Where are you from? And I'm from everywhere because I'm a part of the universe. So I can very much relate to and resonate with the Pleiadians and the Syrians and everywhere.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we're all from everywhere, right? But we do
Mhm.
have these. It's like I'm from South Africa, so I will have that flavor, I will have that accent, I will have those ways about me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what our star heritage is, but it's not our identity. But yeah, I definitely do
Yeah.
resonate with the Pleiadians. I do
Yeah.
love
And
them.
you're a mixture of your ancestors too that might not have been from South Africa too, right? So
Exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, I think it's a very nice thing for us to remember that here in these earth bodies, we are very hybridized. We are a conglomerate of many, many, many different races. There is no such thing as a earth originating human being. None of us originated here. We are all genetically modified. We are tampered with. That's what we are. But there's beauty in that because it means we are everything. We are from so many stars. And I can say to you, yeah, I relate to South Africa because I've lived here for so many years. But I could also say to you, I relate to South America and I relate to Canada and I relate to Hawaii and I relate to everywhere because it's all part of the planet that I live on, which is all part of the cosmic field that I'm a part of, which is all part of the universe that I belong to, which is all part of the creator. So my focus is always going to be that expanded sense of self.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful too, because sometimes when you go to a place, physically go to a place where you feel called to,
Mm.
um, there's like a remembrance of some kind, some healing that takes place, even if you're not necessarily aware
Yeah.
of it. And then you expand even more, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Um,
Well, you were talking a moment back about love. You said something about love, what is, and it's interesting that you use that phrase because a phrase that's been coming up for me probably for the last 3 months now is the phrase let love in. Just it's like sometimes I lie in bed at night and it's like this echo and it just goes around and around and around, but not in words, it's an energy. And the energy, if it could speak, would use those words, let love in. And so I've been saying to people more and more when I speak to them, just let love in. Just let love in. And love is everywhere. Love is between the words that we speak. It's in these beautiful silent pauses. It's so rich, it's pulsating and it's vibrating and it's filled with love. And when we dare, because it is kind of daring, because this is what we were taught not to do. We were taught not to entertain anything outside of the control of the logical mind. So now when we let love in, we're doing everything. We're being embodied. We're connecting with our multidimensionality. We're experiencing our totality and our wholeness. We're experiencing a consciousness of unity. And what if it were just that simple? Like, what if that was the one thing that was going to be the domino that allowed all the other dominoes to fall and put everything else in place? So if ever the beautiful people who are listening to your show today, if ever they get confused and they say, what is my next step? And what should I do? And how should I do it? And why should I do it? Just stop and let love in.
Yeah,
Just let love in.
I love that. It feels very like a surrender energy too. Just a
Yeah.
surrender, right? It's like you're fighting against the stream and then you just surrendering to the flow of the ocean. Yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And it's so synchronistic too, because um, last week I also sing and I write songs. And so last week I released a song called Love Is All There Is. And I love what you said about like love is everywhere and love is in the silence between the words. Like that's kind of like the idea of the song too, that you know, love is the joy and the pain, and it is everywhere, the light and the dark. So I you know, I'll watch back to get inspired to write more songs
Oh,
about love because I
beautiful.
love that let love in, and I love the words you used too.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
Wonderful. I actually have a question from one of the members. I also have a community called the Starseed Grid, and they're able to ask questions to the upcoming guests. And so there's a question from Shreya, and she says, "There's a lot that I've heard about soul retrieval, calling back all parts of ourselves. Can you shed light on what this actually means and how to go about it?" And she also says that I've been following her for a couple of years and I really love her energy. Please say a huge thank you to her.
Oh, thank you so much, my darling. Thank you so much. It's a gorgeous question. Um, what is this thing called soul retrieval? And the question, how do we do it? Every time we're asking that question, how do I do this? How do I do shadow work? How do I forgive? How do I whatever in spirituality? What we're doing is we're getting analytical because that's the mind speaking. How do I? Soul retrieval, and actually all spiritual work, to be very honest with you, is supremely easy when we do it on the other side of the analytical brain. So it's great that we've got this analytical brain because it allows us to talk and have this conversation. But for the sake of practicing soul retrieval, understand what it is. It's a state of wholeness. Really uncomplicated, really simple. Why is it necessary though? Okay, good question. We've lived in a crazy world with so many different splintered, fragmented timelines. And all of these splintered and fragmented timelines have essentially come into one convergence point now. So in our current day timeline, we have got thousands of collapsed timelines all converged into the same place. They had to do this to get ready for Ascension. Ascension is not something that somebody authorizes. Ascension is a cyclical, natural cycle. It's a natural event. So this collapsing of the timelines was very much automated, and it's something that the universe does. It collapses everything into a 0 point so that we can ascend, and then from the ascension point, we can go forward. But as all of those timelines collapsed, when they did, they ejected into this convergence point that we're in right now, all of our unresolved past and all of our past lives and all of our parallel lives and all of our splintering and all of our fragmentation. So, if anything, at the convergence point, we felt more unwhole and more unhealed than ever before and more conflicted than ever before because everything that was ever suppressed and repressed and unhealed and unwhole came to the surface. There are many ways to deal with it, but I'm going to give you the most efficient, the quickest, the simplest, the easiest. Spend time in stillness. I know it sounds like this should be very complex and this should be like a 10-year long process. But if you do this one thing, if you spend time consciously present, it's an energy field that you move into. And I describe it with 3 words. The 3 words are presence, connection, and stillness. So you have a state of being that hosts these 3 words: presence, connection, stillness. So when I say to you, sit in stillness, I'm saying to you, sit with these 3 energies: presence, connection, and stillness. And do you know what's going to happen? Wholeness. Because you're in neutrality, because when you're in presence, connection, and stillness, you are automatically in neutrality. That's the magic elixir of the alchemist. It is the neutrality. The neutrality begins to resolve. The neutrality begins to dissolve. The neutrality begins to bring together all of the lost pieces of you, all the fragmented pieces of you. And the more time you can spend in that conscious presence, almost as if you're spending time in presence as presence itself, the more you can do that, the more the presence does the work. So light, in a sense, light is doing the work of bringing you back into wholeness again. See, if we left it to our own devices, how would we as a human being perform soul retrieval with the brain? We would say, okay, make a list. These are all the places where I got lost. These are all the places my soul got separated from myself, which happened through all of these traumas. Now we've got a list. Now we're getting analytical. Now we're not healing. You can know all 5,000 places that your soul fragmented and not be one step closer to wholeness. You can know nothing, but just spend time in conscious presence. And it is a frequency. It's a fullness of being. But in spending time there, you become a magnet that brings everything back to you again. It brings you back into wholeness. We've reached a point in our ascension journey where if we will allow it, the work is being done for us. But that's our job. Our job is, and it's a big job, I must allow. I must allow myself to not direct. I always tell people, don't try to micromanage your healing. I mustn't direct this presence and say, okay, go do soul retrieval now. Go fix everything now. I must just be present with presence and allow it to be with me. Allow it to know my highest outcome. Doesn't mean I'm passive at all. Doesn't mean I'm not in charge of my healing. It means I'm working with the universe. But if I work with the universe, that means surely that I'm in partnership. And why do we all feel like I've got to do this thing? I've got to heal myself. It's only me that can do it. It's only me that can allow it. So if I were to really simplify this even more, how do I do soul retrieval in a very, very simplified, simplistic answer? I would say you don't do it, you allow it.
Mm. You let love in.
Ah, you let love in. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. And one thing that was coming to mind too is the power of intention too, right? You set the intention, like you said, to stay in stillness. You can even set that intention to allow soul retrieval to happen, but then surrender and then really just allow to the universe to be poured through you. And there is power in intention, but I always say set the intention, but then release the expectation
Yeah.
and surrender.
And even if you set the intention with your heart,
Mhm.
you know? We're used to operating way too much from the brain. Let your heart feel your intention into the universe. And that becomes a very, very powerful exercise.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that because oftentimes we set the intention from the mind or we ask the questions from the mind. And oftentimes too, when I'm with clients, they'll make the questions and I can feel that it's coming from their mind. And then we'll just do a little bit of a tuning into the heart center, and then all of a sudden the question might even disappear. They have a different
Ooh.
question that wasn't the same because it resonates in a different frequency.
Exactly. You know, I think I learned this when I was really sick and really young, being in that heart mind of God. There are no questions. And the more you can be in that questionlessness and the acceptance of what is, the more you know everything. And, you know, obviously by listening to me now for this long, nearly an hour, you'll know that everything that I do is going to usher people away from mental reasoning. There's time and place for mental reasoning. If I cross the road, I need my brain to tell me, Kerry, don't walk in front of the car. I need my brain. It's very important. But I don't need my brain for my spiritual work. So I need my body. I need my heart, which is infinitely more wise than my intellect will ever be. So if anything, we're tuning into a deeper level of intelligence that exists outside of the mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to ask a couple more questions, even though we're in the questionless realm now.
Sure thing. Sure
Um,
thing.
that is just something I'm feeling that some of the listeners and viewers might be thinking about. Um, the 3D into 5D process, because we're not quite in 5D and we're still in 3D, and then we have the 4D. But I often get questions, and it's something that I face through in my life, which is that you're vibrating in the heart, in and you're expanding your consciousness, you can see the reality, you're co-creating the reality that you envision and that you feel, but externally you will still see things that are very 3D, like wars and
Mm.
politics and you name it, and also in relationships too, like your mother or your partner or your best friend. They're not in they're still seeing that reality, that old reality that because you've been there and you've experienced it. So I know that that's a big question, but what would you say for anybody who's feeling that kind of gap or that paradox? The reality that I'm seeing is not the reality that I feel,
Mm.
and it gets very challenging for us to navigate.
Yeah. When that happens, and it will happen, and it will happen a lot. When that happens, what most people do is they then try to alter the external world. So they say, for example, I'm more loving. Why isn't the world more loving? I'm more whole. Why isn't the world more whole? I'm more harmonious. Why aren't they following suit? They must wake up. So, in other words, the world must change. So, when we become aware of that inconsistency between what we feel inside and what our eyes are seeing, that's when we have to stop and remind ourselves, whoa, wait, I'm a spiritual warrior and I'm living in a world and I'm living in a realm that is not yet visible to the external world, and I cannot make it so. In other words, I can't insist that before the majority is ready, that the external world starts to change for them. I have to respect that it's going to shift for them when it's the right time, for the majority. I have to accept then also that I am the minority. And what is a minority? A minority, they're here to lead. The minority that we are, the spiritual community, the star seeds and the light workers and the spiritual warriors, we are the pioneers of a new realm and a new era. So, of course, we're going to have privy to a new world, but that new world must be embodied. And our job is to do that and not fall back into the old tendency that says the external world must validate my internal feeling. No. As a pioneer, Your internal world and that external world for a long time to come are going to look very different. Accept it. That's just how it is. So then keep focusing on building your inner world, not changing that external one. Keep your focus where it's powerful. And that is, okay, that external world, they're still, for example, at war. And my next door neighbor is still fighting. And my cousin and my uncle and my lover and my whoever. I must let them. This is very difficult. I must let them be in their disharmony, because God didn't come in and intervene with me and say, listen, Kerry, you better be harmonious now. I've had enough of you. It's time to wake up. No, God said, Kerry, take your time. Take your time. If you don't get it in this lifetime, you'll get it because you're infinite. So I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm not pressurizing you. I'm allowing you to wake up when you're ready. So I must emulate that. Not my own ego's desire for the external world to change. I must emulate the way that God treats me. God treats me with free will. God says, just do you. Basically, just do your inner world. If we remember that as pioneers, to just keep building the foundation of this inner world, not to go, okay, I'm awakened. I'm awakened. Now everybody else must wake up. No, it doesn't work that way. It should say, I'm awakened, so I must now awaken more. And if I see conflict and I see terror and I see whatever it is, that means I must awaken more. Let more love in, let more light in, let more truth in. Build my inner world, not stop and wait for the external world to be where I am, because it's not going to be. So there's a deep measure of acceptance that we need to accept that the external world is as it is, where it is. But use the time, because God will, I see so many light workers waiting for others to catch up, waiting for others to wake up, impatient. And the only reason that they're doing that is because they think that they've arrived. They think that they're where they need to be. So they're not focusing on their inner growth anymore. They're focusing on everybody else's growth. We're only powerful when our focus is inward. We're only powerful when we are building this inner castle and not trying to build it externally. And we may need to remind ourselves and each other when we see that incongruence between the inner and the outer world. There will come a time when those two worlds are going to match. It's inevitable. There will come a day when those two, we call that day Ascension, by the way, when those two worlds, the inner 5D world finally becomes the external 5D world. It will happen. But until it does, you are in a false matrix. You are in an inverted universe. You are in that 3D world that you were born to, and that's perfect. You're meant to be there as the awakened one in a sleeping world. You're meant to be there because your presence as the pioneer of consciousness is the ripple that begins to melt the fabric of the false matrix. That's why we woke up before everybody else did. We woke up before everybody else did, not to insist that they wake up, but just to be the awakening so that we could be the ripple. We needed enough of us to ground the light into our planet so that we could move forward. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, 100%. And I love what you said about the free will too, and like feeling like imitating or emanating God's
Yeah.
essence, which is you do you and I trust you, right?
Yeah.
And it's it's nice to like be inspired by that, which is also the way the spirit guides work with us too. You know, they will never interfere, but they will
Yeah.
nudge and they'll trust.
Yeah.
And the other thing too that you said about, you know, the ascension is it's already happening, right? Yes, there it's not a destination. It's already happening. It will be different in the future for us. Mother Earth has made the decision to ascend, and it is happening. She is ascending, and so it's nice to also be inspired by her, right? She made the decision. She's committed to that frequency, and she's on the way. And it's like, are we going to ride along with her, right, or
Exactly.
not?
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot of people trying to force things into place. And we had such a beautiful conversation about the power of acceptance, but apply it to everything, especially to other people and where they are, you know. And it's like, isn't it crazy that we understand that our guides, angels, God, even our galactic family, they don't force us, they don't push us. They've never intervened, but we want to intervene with the world. We want to intervene with others. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and there's something about them trusting us so that we can be sovereign and we can
Yeah,
find out things for ourselves and make the
yeah,
decisions for ourselves. Which
yeah,
is, I feel like sovereignty is also like a big theme for this
ab-
Ascension 5D
yeah,
consciousness.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Sovereignty is self-leadership. Can I lead myself? Can I be responsible for my own world?
Yeah. And I feel that energy very much from you to that sovereignty energy, which is
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very nice to be inspired by too. Kerry, I could talk to you for days, like you said. Um,
Thank you, Will.
but we'll close here and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your light and shining your light. I acknowledge you for your commitment to your work to just spread light and spread the information and help humanity to ascend and help humans to feel more, to awaken. So thank you so much. And just to wrap it up, I'd love for you to share a little bit about how people can connect with you. Some of my listeners and viewers might already be following you on YouTube or Instagram, but just share with us what's the best way to connect and talk about your projects as well or your community.
Thank you. Well, the best way to connect with me is on any social media platform, and my handle is I am Kerry K. But the important thing to remember is carry is with a K. So many people spell carry like you're going to carry your bags, you know. It's not carry with a C, it's carry with a K. So it's a double K, KerryK. I am Kerry K on any social media, and my website is kerryk.com. And on my website, that's where people can join my online community called the Plasma Light Tribe. We're the Plasma Light Tribe because we're learning to absorb the plasma from the sun to activate our plasma light body to shift us into 5D. So there's blogs on my website, there's heaps. I'm not going to talk about it all. Go and have a look, kerryk.com.
The
And if
plas-
you feel,
Sorry, good, go
yeah,
ahead.
the plasma light tribe. So if anybody feels inspired to come and have a look, I'd be happy to see you there.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that it feels so timely too with all the solar flares and the activity that we're receiving. It feels very timely, the name.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Of it, and also your YouTube too. I recommend everybody go check her videos out. You post pretty much every week, right? Or every
Oh
day.
yeah.
Um,
On short form, I post every day. So like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, 3 videos a day. On YouTube, maybe twice a week because those are longer videos. So yeah,
yeah,
everywhere.
I love your longer videos, and yeah, I get a lot from it, and I'm sure everybody will resonate with you too. Thank you again so much, and I hope to connect with you sometime other time soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks,
Much love.
everyone.
Thanks for watching or listening to this podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Kerry's work, you can go to her website, kerryk.net, and follow her on Instagram as well. I am Kerry K, and follow her on YouTube. As always, I will put the links in the description so that you can just click and follow her. Really recommend her videos on YouTube. You'll love the information and the way that she delivers information too. And once again, if this has brought you value, please subscribe to my podcast or my YouTube channel and share this episode with some of your Starseed Lightworker friends who might benefit from this too. And as always, keep shining your light, keep your heart open, and let love lead the way. I love you. See you in the next episode. Bye.